I sent this out as an email, I think last week, and I was talking about protecting your energy in a sense and kind of looking out for things that steal your energy. And, I think since social media came out, I think it's worse than ever. But actually, I'll just get into some examples. So, what I'm talking about is so let's say you every day you have like a finite amount of energy, and then you sleep, and then maybe refresh. Some things can build up. So some days maybe you don't have as much energy as you did the day before, or maybe you have more. But the fact is like you have a certain amount every day that can be put towards the things you want to do. And so if you look at energy and time together, they're sort of interwoven in a way. At least that's my perception of it. And I've been thinking a lot about the things that drain at least my energy. And I think it's applicable to everybody to think about this kind of thing. So let's just get into this. So I think one of the things that sparked my sort of rethinking about this was I was on a post. It was somebody else's post, but it was featuring me. And somebody made this comment, and it was directed at me. And I didn't even respond because I'm like, this just doesn't look like it's going to go anywhere. But some other people responded, and then the person responded back. And then, long story short, I think it ended up being like 30, 40, I don't even know at this point. But it was just this crazy back and forth over and over and over again. And the same things were being said by both sides, and there was multiple people going back and forth on it. And I am only looking at it from the outside, so I don't know how much energy was being used by any of the parties involved. But I've seen this happen before, and I've never, well, I can't say that I've never have, but I try to avoid these kind of things. Arguing on the internet is not something that I'm interested in. But you could sort of tell, at least my perception when I was looking at these comments, that it was creating a response in the people that were participating in this back and forth. And so that's kind of what I'm getting at is like, one, you're spending your time doing these things that don't really have a return on your time investment, I would say. But you're also using your energy on this kind of thing. And so I would assume that every time one of the parties involved maybe got a notification, or they may even have been sitting on the app. This is obviously speculation. I wasn't participating, but they may even be just sitting there waiting for responses to come back. And then they'd see the response, and that would trigger a response in them, some kind of, they would get pissed or something like that. And then they would fire back, and then the other person would fire back, and they just keep going back and forth. And I know that I say, like I don't participate in this kind of stuff, but like I try not to get affected at all. Like I would like to be, I think I've talked about this years ago. Maybe I should make an episode about this, but one of my goals in life is to be unfuckwithable, to a certain point where, I can take everything objectively and not, I guess I don't want to be completely, unemotional about these things, but I do want to be able to take in the information and just objectively look at it and calmly respond rather than having things affect me. And so I've tried to keep that top of mind, especially when I'm participating in social media, which I do every single day, pretty much, because I'm very active with building Machine's brand and putting out information and doing shit like this, So I'm on there, and so I'm a target for negative responses, and it's kind of interesting because I never really, excuse me, I didn't really take Facebook all that seriously, but lately our posts are getting pushed out so much on Facebook that it's very worthwhile to put them there. And it's the most negative place ever, And so I was losing the battle in terms of not letting these things affect me to a certain extent. And so I found myself, when I would go check notifications on Instagram, I would do it optimistically, because generally it's positive. Every now and then there's a little sprinkle of negative stuff. But on Facebook, it's probably the scales are tilted way more in the negative. So I have people calling me names and talking all kinds of shit. And so I started being conditioned to expect that when I would log into Facebook and see. And some people say like, oh, just post it and ghost it. Like, don't read that stuff. But like, I don't feel like that's fair to the people that are positive. I want to be able to interact with people and stuff. So like, my solution was to try to just go into it expecting to see these things and try to this isn't a word I use very much, but like empathize with the person that's making those comments. And so my whole thought process about that is like, I would imagine that most people pass things that they don't like on the internet every day and just move on with their life. But then there's those few people that like can't do that. I don't know if they can't, but there's those few people that like feel the need to talk shit. And I honestly believe that there's something going on with those people because I don't think that's normal to want to cut somebody down like that. I think it's actually abnormal and counterproductive to your own life. And you might think that, oh, I'm going to make this guy feel bad about himself. And it's like, maybe for some people, but like really, I feel like it's affecting the person making that comment more so than anyone because you're sort of participating in this kind of negative, I'm missing the word. There's a word that I wanted to use. I can't remember what it is, but you're participating in this negative activity that I don't think is good for you. And so I try to look at those with empathy, and it's like, there must be something going on with this person. And, oh man, I'm sorry. I should have turned that off. There must be something going on with this person to not be able to, just scroll past something they don't like without talking shit. And so that makes it a little easier. But anyway, like I got a little bit sidetracked. But so when I would log into Facebook, I would expect a lot of shit talking. And a lot of times, I think it's probably 70% negative and 30% positive. So I'm not sure how valuable the reach is, but I looked at the analytics on Facebook like last week, and we got 3 million views in 30 days on Facebook, which I was just like, what the fuck? That's crazy. Anyway, so I was losing the battle, as I was saying. I was losing the battle in being able to log on there and not let it affect me. And so I found myself, when I would just click the Facebook icon, my heartbeat would speed up a little bit and I would start getting a little anxious because I know I was going to see all of these things, And so back to the point, what that's doing is stealing some of my energy, and I was allowing that to happen. And so the same thing was happening on that post I was talking about, that there was the back and forth. So like the people participating in that were using some of their units of energy for the day to participate in something that, in my opinion, has no return on investment on your time or your energy. So if you think about it along the lines of, you only have a certain amount of time in the day and you only have a certain amount of energy in the day, why would you spend that on negative shit? It's you're wasting both of those things, and those are very valuable things. You can't get your time back for sure. I mean, you could recoup your energy, but like once I guess you could recoup your energy, and I could try to get into that as well. Another example that I was thinking of, and I've had this happen to me before, and it still does. You have a negative interaction with a person, and maybe it's sort of an argument or something. And then when the argument ends and you go your separate ways, have you ever done this where like you just kept arguing in your mind? Like this person says, I don't know, maybe I'm crazy, but I feel like other people must do this. Let me know in the comments if you're on YouTube, if you do this. I'd be interested to know, or send me an email. But have you ever done that where, you finish the argument and you feel like it's unresolved, in a sense, and then you continue in your own mind. So you're saying what that person's going to say and then what you were going to say. It's, think about how ridiculous that is. Like, not only are you wasting your time, but how much energy do you spend arguing with your own self? I mean, that's just fucking ridiculous. And I still do that sometimes. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. And so I don't really know what else to talk. Well, actually, I got a couple other things. The as far as the concept of recouping your energy, and I did this one day and it worked. And so I've been doing this more often, but there was one of those days where I was spending way too much time on social media, and I tend to not consume as much anymore. So I don't get into the doom scrolling stuff. I do, I look at things, but it's not the majority of my time is spent really strangely, honestly, because I post on so many platforms now. And like, I've created this habit where I'm just like bouncing around on all the platforms and like checking comments and checking all this stuff. And it's sort of become a habit. Like, I don't really need to know on a real time basis, like what's going on. So I was having one of those days where I was like going and bouncing around all the different platforms that I post on and see how things are doing, see what people are saying and all these kind of things. And then I would get to Facebook, and when I would go in there, I would feel the anxiety and, I would see these negative comments and I'd be like, oh man, that's annoying. And so I found that, I found myself being incredibly anxious after doing that for a little while. I don't remember how long it was, maybe like 45 minutes, just sort of bouncing around and looking at shit. And so I put the phone down and I was like, man, I got to chill out on this. This is like negatively affecting me. And I have all these other things that I need to do. And those other things take time and energy. And I'm wasting both of those things bouncing around and creating this anxiety. And so what I did was I said, okay, fuck this. I'm going to put the phone down and I'm going to go sit on the couch and I'm just going to meditate for 20 minutes. So I have this little meditation timer and I just put that on and did a 20-minute session. And, right after the 20-minute session, I worked out because that, releases endorphins. And it also like is another way of redirecting, the energy. Now that I'm thinking about it, it might've been reversed. I can't remember, but it doesn't really matter. Both of those things together is very powerful. And once I was done with both of those things, I was like, man, I just feel great. Like I felt like all my energy came back, like I distanced myself from the thing that was creating the negativity and, channeled that into some positive things. And so, one thing I could wrap up with is learning to redirect that energy. So, whether it's positive or negative or draining or energizing, I guess you could say, there's still energy being spent. So like if you're in a place where you're participating in these back and forths or like doing it in your own mind, or you're actually doing it online or something like that, or through text messages, having some kind of argument, there's, I think, Andy Frisella talked about this. I think it was called a production pivot or something. And it's, I guess there's two things you could say about it. One, it's, recognizing the feeling that you have when that stuff is happening. So that could be your trigger that reminds you to do something positive. So if you're participating in some kind of activity that's creating that negative energy, and you learn to recognize it as a trigger to say, oh, you know what, I'm in this cycle of negativity, and that's going to trigger my memory. I don't know. I'm fucking having trouble right now. It's a reminder, to pivot that energy into something positive. And so you could do a whole number of things, and the meditation and workout thing is obviously something you could do, or you could, tackle some tasks, some nagging tasks that you may have that, those kind of tasks that every time you think about it, you get a little pit in your stomach and you're like, man, I don't want to do that. I don't want to fill out that paperwork or make that phone call or whatever. Maybe you could do those things. And, you know how that is. Like those things, you always feel better after you do that. You always feel better after you work out. You always feel better after a meditation session. So those could be little triggers for you. So that's about it. That's all. That's all I can really think of. I think it's a pretty straightforward concept. So in parting, just think about this: like our energy is ours to manage in the same way you manage your time. So managing your energy, I think, is at least as important as managing your time. So I would say start being mindful about it, because I know when I was actually conscious of where my energy was going and where it's being sort of stolen from, it made it easier to deal with these kind of things, and made it easier to not kind of feed into it and end up wasting like a whole day doing this whole back and forth shit in your mind. So think about what's draining you, what's fueling you. How can you be more productive with the energy that you have rather than letting it get sucked away by some negative shit. All right.
Appreciate each and every one of you guys who are supporting the cause and continue to spread the love. And yeah, stay up.